Welcome to another program called Selalelo, which is a program that we talk about issues of bringing the worlds and people together to talk about issues related to table type talks, dinners, and also a program to help deal with some reconciliation and healing. We have many issues, in fact, in our community, our society, and so on. My name is Ajamal Binding. I'm the board chair of MORE, Movement Omaha for Race Equity. And what we have today in this program is Merapelo Letebele, who is based out of Botswana, and she is the program coordinator of this program. And we're going to talk to you about a number of issues that are concerned that we should be talking about as Africans, African Americans, and people of goodwill. So first, Merapelo, welcome to the show, and maybe share with the listening audience, or viewing audience, a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this talk today. As you rightly said, my name is Merapelo, and I am in Mankodi, a small village outside of Gaborone, which is the capital of Botswana. And I am the program coordinator for the Selalelo More Southern African project.
Good, good. Now, one of the things I wanted to explore with you today, there are a lot of issues happening in our society, and I wanted to get your perspective, particularly someone who's in Mankodi, Botswana, and again, you see things somewhat differently from some other folks, and you, as we would say, boots on the ground. I've been following this conflict in southern Sudan or Sudan. I know there's a lot of people been evacuated, and there's just some conflicts been happening for many years. From your perspective, what is happening in Sudan that we should be aware of as good people who want to help other people? What are some of those issues?
It's very sad what's happening in the Sudan. We know that about 15 years ago or so, there was a raging civil war where the Sudan was actually split into two, where a new nation state was came out of that, South Sudan as we know it today. And a few years ago, we know that the Sudanese president al-Bashir was toppled, and now it looks like, and then he was toppled by the army. So the army is now fighting itself. And from what I can gather so far is that there are two factions of the army. Some have been previously, they were previously rebels, and they've been waiting to get integrated into the new army, like the formal army of the country. But it looks like that group has grown in strength and number and everything that you can imagine, to a point where it is actually almost matching the official army.
Oh, wow.
Par to par in terms of military equipment and even their numbers, their ranks. So nobody really knows, I think, at this point what's happening. But a very interesting thing that has popped into my head, and after reading and seeing what's happening in the news, it looks like this could be a proxy war of some kind, because Sudan has previously allowed Russia to build a naval base in the Sudan. And so, I don't know if the ongoing Russian-Ukraine war has anything to do with this. It's out there for anybody to say, but it's interesting how a few years ago, the Russians were getting ready to get into the Sudan, build a naval base like all the other superpowers do all around the world. Now, suddenly, a war has broken out in that country.
Wow. Well, I know there are a lot of people being evacuated from different nationalities and so on in different countries. And so it's still one of those issues we're going to be following for a number of months to come. I'm not sure if they can broker a peace deal, considering the intensity of the fight. I know there have been a number of people, casualties in this. It's just kind of a civil war, this internal conflict that's happening in a society we thought we had achieved peace in that area. I'm going to switch up.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Sorry, can
Yes.
I just say something? One of the things that I found very interesting about this present conflict is how a group that was formerly just like an informal militia, is so well resourced. So we know that, countries in Africa, especially the Sudan, there's not a whole lot of money coming in. So you just wonder, where do they get all these things? Where do they get all the military equipment and hardware? And from what I've heard, some observers say these people are so well organized, like you can see that they've been properly trained. They're not like regular rebels who are just fighting in the bush somewhere.
Wow.
So I think that's a point to watch as Africans, to see who is coming into our countries and fueling civil wars.
Wow, which is unfortunate and crazy and sad. Wow. I want to switch up if I can, and I want to move to another topic. I know that we're kind of chasing these topics in a different kind of a way, but I'm aware that Zimbabwe just recently settled its 43rd year of independence. Around the 1980, apparently, is when they became independent, around that time. And as an outsider looking in, how is Zimbabwe doing? We don't hear a lot about the news of Zimbabwe since the demise or the passing of Robert Mugabe. What's going on over there from your vantage point?
Zimbabwe is a very beautiful country of Southern Africa, and it's heartbreaking to see what's happening in Zimbabwe, because they are being denied the right to participate in commerce international on a global or international level by the powers that be, just because under Robert Mugabe's rule, they thought that it was fair for them to take back the land that was taken by the colonizers, because Europeans who had been in Zimbabwe since after the end of the colonial era, they owned all the land, all the productive land. And, there had been many talks in the past for a peaceful transition, for the land to go back to the people, and that never happened. Everybody knows about that. And now Zimbabwe was barred from trying to do anything. We know that, for instance, Zimbabwe has a lot of gold, and their gold is having a difficult time going through the normal channels, just because they are being punished for taking back their land and to distributing it to Africans, to the natives of the country.
So when oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, sorry.
I was going to ask you, said the gold doesn't go through normal channels. What does that mean when you say the gold doesn't go through normal channels?
The trade of it.
So is that like a boycott? What's happening?
No, Zimbabwe is just, they've made it very difficult for them to get into the international platforms.
Okay, got you. That makes sense.
Trade commodities like gold and other things.
Okay.
Because their leaders have been sanctioned, and the sanctions affect the country negatively to a point where the economy has collapsed just because of the land issue.
And I thought at one point the conflict was primarily with the president, Robert Mugabe, after he disappeared as prime minister and passed away. I thought there'd be more stabilization, that the international community would warm up to Zimbabwe. And I remember when I was in Botswana in the 1977 and 79, Zimbabwe had an infrastructure that they were exploiting a lot of resources, had a thriving economy underneath the colonial regime of Ian Smith. And so I thought after independence, a lot of those things would continue. And it seems like they've had some difficult times in the past 40-some years almost. So it's been unfortunate that it's happening there. By the way, I was going to ask you, are there Zimbabwean people who came as refugees in Botswana? Did most of them go back from your vantage point, or do you have a lot of Zimbabweans in Botswana today because of that economy of that country, or did they go back? What's going on in that area?
A lot of Zimbabweans who came to Botswana prior to their independence have since naturalized, and they've become citizens of Botswana. But over the years, from maybe about 20 years ago, when things really started going south for Zimbabwe, there was like a mass exodus of Zimbabweans into neighboring countries, including Botswana. And a lot of them are economic refugees, as they've been called in quote marks, because they're just looking for ways to feed their families, and they do small jobs and big jobs. Some of them are documented, some of them are undocumented residents in Botswana. But what I know about Zimbabweans is that they are hardworking people, very honest, and it's just sad to see how you have to flee from your own country just because the conditions are not conducive for you to make a living. But we do know that the thing that is making life difficult for Zimbabweans is not necessarily the Zimbabwean government. It is the Zimbabwean government in the sense that they took back their land and everybody else shunned them and they don't want to trade with them. So because now everybody lives this or aspires to have this modern life that is based on international commerce and this and that, it's just difficult for them to be able to gain any access to markets, to services, to even, you know, the financial services and instruments.
Wow. Yeah, most of us don't oftentimes understand the complexity of those issues in those countries. And sometimes we will read newspapers or articles or magazine articles, and sometimes it's somewhat distorted. So you almost have to have somebody who's on that side in the continent give us a kind of an honest overview of the backstory, as they would say, in many of these developments in these countries that are struggling in this day and age. I want to switch up just a little bit. And I know in more, we talk a great deal about relationships between African Americans, reconciliation, Africans, and particularly Africans in Southern Africa who experienced the historical impact of apartheid. And now we live in post-apartheid South Africa. And one thing I just want to ask you in general, looking at that part of the world that you're in and your experience of being over here for some time, and of course, how do we bring and help African Americans and Africans? How can we get our worlds together and get us to communicate better from your vantage point?
I think there are very many ways that we can try to bring these two groups together. Number one, I think it's important for us to reach groups that are already existing, that are already organized, that have organized themselves. And any African American group that is interested in Southern Africa, for instance, we know that because of the history, the fact that a lot of African Americans, their ancestors were taken from West Africa, you might find that the African Americans may have a stronger sense of allegiance to West Africa more than Southern Africa. But Africa is a very big continent. There's space for everybody. And I think there are a lot of very interesting things that are happening in Southern Africa that can attract African Americans, especially opportunities to start up businesses here so that we can forge stronger linkages, and also, you know, cultural exchange programs and things like that. There are just many things. And I think one of the easiest way is to reach groups that are already existing and invite each other to each other's countries, each other's events, where we can take an opportunity to sit around, you know, in meeting rooms and just talk about things that affect us together and formalize our desires to form alliances and, you know, fraternal relations and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. I know there are a number of African Americans who've gone into West Africa, different countries, and invest money in entrepreneurial businesses and different things like that. Is it easy for somebody from outside of Botswana to come in and buy land and start a business in your country? How's that? Is that a possibility if somebody wanted to start a business and you do some import or just make some manufacturing thing? Can that happen in Botswana today?
Yeah, currently the Botswana government is on an aggressive drive to get new businesses to set up in Botswana, because they're trying to industrialize, they're trying to diversify the economic base. So, you know, the country is pretty much wide open, and we have what we call the Botswana Investment Trade Center, which facilitates, you know, businesses to set up. And so far, I have seen that, you know, people from other regions in the world, other continents, are the ones that are coming in and accessing all this land and opportunities that are available in Botswana. But I know that towards the end of last year and beginning of this year, I've been seeing my president going to the United States a lot, attending, you know, agricultural shows and things like that, you know, still trying to make those linkages. And usually people will believe when somebody who's high up there in terms of in the power structure go to meet, you know, groups like, I don't know whether it will be the Bureau of Commerce, what are they called? Those
the Chamber of Commerce in the United States.
Yeah.
Those kind of major businesses that facilitate growth and business startup for many organizations.
Yeah, things like that. So and I know that my country is very much involved in talking to embassies. If wherever we have an embassy, they try to make sure that the people working in the embassy scout for opportunities and groups that they can address. I know even in the past, it's been going on for a very long time, but still I don't see a lot of African Americans taking up the opportunities, just because I think Botswana is one of those countries that are very low key. Not a whole lot is happening here. People know South Africa more and are drawn to South Africa more than they are to Botswana. But Botswana is much more calm, and there's a lot still that people can enjoy and do and profit from.
Just a quick question. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say there's a lot that people can do here in terms of work and play.
Just a quick question, as you were talking about startup business, I have no clue what you start business with because I'm not in the business field, but how much do you think would start an investment? If somebody came in with 50,000 or 100,000 or whatever like that in US dollars, could that help them start a business depending on what they're working on? Is that a possibility? Or do you need $1 million? Or what kind of money are we talking about a small startup business from another country could be if you want to be successful?
It'll definitely depend on what you're trying to do, obviously. And I think one of the things that I know are a little thorn on, people's sides is the fact that we don't have access to the sea, so it's kind of a little expensive. It's not impossible for you to start a business and profit from it, because we have companies that have come in to set up, like our telecommunications industry, for instance, internet providers. They are doing better than countries that have, bigger economies and populations in Botswana. You just have to know what you want to do and make sure that you do it well. I think if you're serious about it, there are many opportunities. If you contact the people like the BITC, the Investment and Trade Center, they will tell you what is available, what kind of economic sectors are ripe for the taking and things like that, and how to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I didn't know for sure what that entailed in terms of endeavors and making that happen. Now, I know.
Come and start a business in Botswana, Mr. Binden.
Well, my point is, it depends how much money we're talking. I mean, with my chip change, it could be a small amount, but I didn't know if people have to come in with $500,000 or 25,000 or whatever. But like you said earlier, Merapelo, it depends upon what you're going to do. And I think that there are a lot of gaps and issues in our society, both in the United States and in Botswana or other countries where you can make that gap. I think, for example, I remember there was a while back where you can import goods from Botswana that were indigenous made, and you wouldn't have to pay any tariff. It was duty free. So people bought a lot of Botswana baskets and artifacts and skins and you name it. So again, it depends, as you alluded to, what to say, but that might be a possibility. You never know. I want to switch up and ask you a different kind of questions. I know that you are the program coordinator for this program, Selalelo, and I want to just ask you, what are some of the activities? You're working on some different things, and I know things are not always locked in cement or they're not finalized, but what are some of the wishes or expectations you have for some of those activities that you may be encountering or working on in the future that our audience may need to know about or hear more about in the future? What are some of those wish lists, or we say, what are those things?
Yeah, I've been making contacts with a lot of people, trying to see what's possible. For instance, I would like to talk to some people in Namibia, because our countries, Botswana and Namibia, are neighbors, and they are almost like twins because they are similar in, size, economy, and population and things like that. But there seems to be some little conflicts. We have a lot of people. We have some people in Namibia because we share a border, and the border, it will be in some areas will be like bodies of water in the Okavango Delta, and we have a lot of problems with poaching in that area, where the Botswana wildlife authorities suspect that people from Namibia and other countries like Zambia are poaching, and Botswana has a shoot to kill policy when it comes to poaching. And there have been some incidents in the past few years, where some Namibian citizens have been shot by the Botswana Defense Force, who are patrolling the area. So that is kind of causing friction between the two countries. And authorities on both sides of the border are really trying so hard to normalize things. So I would really like to talk to somebody in Namibia, some people in Namibia, for instance, so that we can explore this issue. We know that it is being handled from very high levels of government, you know, through that diplomacy and all that. But there's a need for, you know, ordinary people to talk about it so that we can maybe get a better understanding. So that's one of the things that I'm still working on. It'll come about, I think, maybe in the next few weeks. I would also like to talk to somebody in Zimbabwe, for instance, and just see if, you know, I remember that we are dealing with racial healing as well as ethnic problems. So as much as things seem to be stable, we in the region know that, you know, there are some, you know, under the carpet type problems between different ethnicities in every country. So we would like to be able to talk to people in Zimbabwe, for instance, and see what's happening between the Shonas and the Ndebeles. Those are some of the things that, that I'm working on. And hopefully we'll be able to even talk to people from their embassies, if they can allow us, so that we can get, you know, the official stance and also just ordinary people.
Yeah. Now, I understand that Botswana and Namibia are getting ready to allow their citizens to cross each other's borders without passports. What are your views on that situation where you can go to another country without even a passport?
That's a very welcome move, if you ask me, because everybody's talking about integration. Everybody wants free movement in Africa, you know, so I think it's a step in the right direction. But sometimes I kind of feel like, because of the uncomfortable rumblings that are happening along the borders because of the poaching issue, it looks like maybe at that high level, our governments are trying to put a bandage on a really big wound without really addressing it or you know, healing it first. But it's a very welcome thing. Botswana and Namibia, like I said, they may not necessarily be very big trading partners, but I know that Botswana, for instance, bought a dry port in Namibia where we're trying to access the sea through the Namibian coast. And our countries have, you know, very similar populations almost, and they're very quiet, sparsely populated and things like that. So it's a good trial to see if, you know, regional integration can work. And another good thing is that there's actually an area where Botswana, Namibia, and Zambia share a border, like a tiny little strip of land in the Okavango. And so there's like a new bridge that just got opened that Botswana shares with Namibia, where they're making it easy for people to cross between the borders, you know. So I think that's probably going to be the next thing, where the next place where they're going to allow people to just cross. And usually when people are going into the rest of Africa, they cross through that bridge, the Kazungula Bridge. So, you know, it's very nice, because if there's free movement between borders, then there's better and easy facilitation of goods and movements of peoples across borders. And, you know, I think these are the baby steps in trying to get Africans to open each other's borders up, because we know that these borders were created by the colonialists, and they have caused us a lot of damage. So it would be nice to see some of the things receding a little, so that Africans can integrate better.
By the way, you raise a question I'm not quite sure. When you use the word dry port, what does a dry port mean as opposed to a wet port? Is that like a beach place where ships will go? What is a dry port? I never heard of that one.
I think a dry port is like Namibia has this a coastline, right?
Right.
So there's a place where you make a port or a dry port where if ships are coming in with your goods, then you can just keep them there and make it easy for your people to come in, or the trucks to come and get them and deliver them to wherever it is where they're supposed to go.
Okay, got you. And I do know at one point
It's almost like I think we are renting it, or we bought it like a piece of land where
in Namibia. Okay.
a facility. Yeah.
The reason that's of concern, I remember reading about years ago, and I'm not sure where they're at, there was going to be a Trans-Kalahari Railroad across instead of going through South Africa, you go directly to the ocean or through Namibia, and you would save a tremendous amount of money. Plus, you would not, as a country, but trying to pay those tariffs or those import duties to another country. They come directly to you almost by going through Namibia, and it'd be cheaper, I understand. Is that still going on? Railroad been still been
no, it's all quiet about that railroad, but it was I guess the next step in trying to make sure that we have access to the sea through the Namibian border. I mean, the Namibian sea, right?
Right.
And it's kind of quiet. I think maybe they're still trying to find the money for it, so that they can actually do it. And it'll be better because currently we only use the South African sea coast. So it'll provide Botswana with a second option.
Which is good.
If you look at the African map and just locate where Rwanda is, Rwanda is just like Botswana, landlocked, but they have the biggest dry port that they built in the last few years. They have this smart partnership with, I think, some people from Saudi Arabia or something. And they just built this huge, massive port there so that, they can facilitate a lot of importation of goods.
Mm-hmm.
So Botswana is kind of trying to do a similar thing. And the thing about Botswana is that it's right in the middle of Southern Africa. So we could be like the next distribution center for everybody.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it has borders with so many other countries because we are right in the middle. So we're just hoping that things will pick up and we can have a dry port or here in Botswana, or maybe they'll expand the one in Namibia. I don't know how they're going to do it.
We're down to our last point. We always say, are there any closing comments that you'd like to share with our participants or viewing audience at this point, Merapelo?
Well, I hope that the people will be excited about this project. I just got back into the country about a month ago, and there's so much that we can harness as a people who are trying to do good in the world. I wish that the people could support the project so that we can facilitate the movement of people, because sometimes it may require us to travel and host people from faraway places from Mankori. So those are my parting shots. I just hope people will be able to support us and tune in and get their friends to participate in our conversation so that we can widen the circle of people who are trying to do good in the world.
Quick question: do you have contact information? What do you have a box number located somewhere? And how would somebody want to catch up to or call you? How would they find information about you? They go through more, and then also, do you have a Facebook page or anything like that for this program?
Yes, we recently started a new Facebook page where we will be posting a lot of the content on, and it is called Selalelo, Selalelo, and the Southern African project. And my phone number here in Botswana is +267 725 25338. Otherwise, people can reach me at Merapelo, MERAPELO .LETEBELE @iCloud.com.
Oh, okay, good. So yeah, if people want to find out more about your program, they have a way to catch up with you, and they can also go to your.
They can also contact more.
Okay, moreomaha.org. Okay, good, very good. Well, I really appreciate you being here today and sharing this valuable information with our audience and so on. And we hope that we can invite you back and have more information sharing in sessions like that. So as we always end, may the force be with you, and Baroko.